Kinds of Teaching, A Theoretical Perspective, Part 2. So focusing in on constructivist teaching and learning, or constructivism, we may see a lot of things happening in a classroom that have its foundation in constructivism. One thing that people who really enjoy thinking about learning in this way, they draw a connection between general knowledge, which is something that maybe I believe I know a lot about the ocean. I have general knowledge about the ocean. And they say, well, really, you don't have general knowledge about the ocean. There really isn't such a thing as general knowledge, but there's situated knowledge about the ocean. So for instance, since I live close to the knowledge, my understanding of sea foam is entirely different from what my understanding of sea foam was when I was a child, when I hadn't walked in sea foam. So we both, the old me and the young me both know what sea foam is, but now that I've had a different situation, my knowledge of sea foam is different. And it would be different from someone who lives on the Mediterranean Sea, where perhaps sea foam is somewhat different from the sea foam in the Pacific Ocean. So all of our learning, all of our knowledge is situated in some kind of specific instance. People who like constructivist teaching and learning, you may see them engaging students in complex and authentic tasks. So instead of filling out a worksheet where you practice something over and over again, a little skill, building those skills up, you might see someone making a project, or planning something and carrying it out, or writing something that someone, a real audience, will read. So complex and authentic tasks is one way that we see constructivist teaching and learning in action. Constructivist teaching and learning takes advantage of intrinsic motivation. So by engaging students in these complex, authentic tasks, we hope that they are interested, and they tend to be more interested in things that are authentic and have meaning for them. We also see a lot of social activity in a constructivist activity. You might have people working things out in groups. Yes, no, maybe. So they do a lot of social negotiation. Students are taught how to work together, how to come to some conclusions, how to work through issues. And so that's one way that constructivist teaching and learning happens. Of course, if they're working with other people, they're going to have some multiple perspectives. So maybe one person thinks of a tree as the leaves. Someone else thinks of the tree from farther back. Someone else thinks of a tree as a home for little baby birds. Everything that we learn about, there are multiple perspectives, a lot of ways to look at it. If we have complex tasks, there's going to be a lot of ways to look at it. If we have social interaction with different people having different ideas, there will be a lot of ways to look at something. So there are a lot of ways to look at what we learn, and there are a lot of ways to represent what we learn. So we may not be always writing a five paragraph paper. We may not always be filling out a multiple choice test. We may not always be drawing something the same way, or reading the same kind of book, or completing the same kind of problem, but there are a lot of ways to look at it. Some people, teachers, in constructivist learning theory, this is the teacher, is not so much someone who stands up in front of everyone and tells them all what to think and what to do and the one perspective that they are to take. But the teacher is someone, you hear the word facilitator a lot, maybe not so much a lecturer, but an event planner, perhaps, planning experiences for students, planning on ways for students to find out background information, planning on ways for students to work with different kinds of knowledge. Some people get concerned and say, well, if all we do is put people in situations, how are they going to learn? What if they don't know enough? A constructivist teacher does provide background information, whether it's through reading or through telling or through some kind of other formative activity, but doesn't just leave students on their own, but understands that students need some background information so that they can learn the situations, from the authentic experiences. In constructivist learning, we also know that our learners come to us with a lot of prior knowledge, a lot of prior experiences. Our learners are not all the same. Our learners have a lot of ideas already and a lot of things that they've learned. They may not be exactly what is most helpful for them to learn the things that we want them to learn, but we work with it and we take it into account, and we consider students' learning a strength. You may hear the term funds of knowledge, taking advantage of the students' funds of knowledge. In a constructivist classroom, oftentimes you'll see a teacher and students sharing control. So this is not so much that the teacher loses control, we hope not, or also it's not that the teacher exerts total control over students and tells them everything to do, but this teacher may share control by giving choices. This teacher may share control by involving students in decisions that are made, by trying out things that the teacher may not have thought of him or herself. So in a constructivist classroom or constructivist approach, you will see teacher and students sharing control. One final thing about in constructivist teaching and learning, you will see a teacher helping a student to self-evaluate. So we know that eventually students will have to self-evaluate. They'll have to know if the person that he or she chose to marry is a good person to marry. We'll have to know if a job choice is correct. We'll have to know if this apartment is the right apartment or this car is the right car. So students will need to self-evaluate. So teachers put them in positions. They may provide learning experiences for them to evaluate what they learned, how hard something was, how easy something was. Did I do a good job? Did I work hard? And what else do I need to know now? What can I do now? So teaching students to take charge of their own learning and make their own choices and do their own evaluation and do a good job at it is another thing that happens in the constructive approach to learning. The end.